I was looking for a job for 3 years. I did a drop-off of my CVs with no luck because I didn't have qualifications, I didn't have degree, I didn't have job experience. I was depressed. Sometimes I could sleep with an empty stomach.
If people have got nothing to lose, they've got nothing to lose. Being exposed to Harambe's model and what they were doing, it completely resonated with me. So I kind of got into impact sourcing almost by accident. And now there are all these other benefits, but up front I wasn't getting into it because I thought my retention rates were going to be better or anything else. It was just about trying to make a difference.
Harambe literally is that ready for work environment. They teach you focus, they teach you how to channel your energy, what is it that you need to do when you get into a workplace.
We went into impact sourcing for the right reasons, social responsibility, but I think we're staying as well with impact sourcing because the benefits we've seen to our clients' customers as well as the financial benefits. So not only did I get the best customer experience I've ever had in the history of my account, but I've also received the financial gain back into our shareholders as well for bringing 500 Harambes on board.
BPESA's got a strategic partnership with Harambe Youth Employment Accelerator and with the DTI, and collectively the three parties drive the growth agenda for the sector in South Africa. What's really significant in this is the ability to influence the way in which the sector can contribute to job creation inclusively, and that government and business co-create the sectoral growth plans and the development plans that are put together by the parties.
As a business person, impact sourcing is not a choice. Impact sourcing is a necessity.
With regards to creating an enabling environment, we focus on infrastructure development, skills development, investment promotion, and creating a cost-competitive environment through incentives. The requirements of the incentive encourages companies to employ 80% youth. 20% of those should be focused on unemployed youth. So we encourage 20% of impact sourcing through the incentive program.
In the context of the South African global business services sector in South Africa, which is scaling at around 25% per annum, we've had to think of new innovative solutions to scale impact sourcing. When we conceptualized the solution with Vodacom, it was understood that this is a first in the context of our country. How does a private sector organization contract with a social enterprise and entrust a significant percentage of their customer service delivery in the name of impact sourcing? And really that's where the Simulation Academy model was born.
The benefit we've seen back into the business is an uplift in all of our key metrics. So we've seen a reduction in calls, we've seen the ability to grow our digital footprint, so it's created new opportunities of growth for us that didn't exist previously, and it spoke to what's at the core. How do we deliver the best customer experience possible? We could take those learnings, apply them back into the other business partners we have, and we've seen an overall lift in our state.
I've been on Altron Bytes People Solution for 3 months now. This means a lot. It means a lot to me to be employed because now I'm independent, I can take care of myself. So it means a change to my future because I can study further and then I can do whatever that I want to do.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for watching the impact sourcing video that was developed for the International Association of Outsourcing, the IAOP, held in the USA to showcase South Africa's GBS sectors setting the global benchmark for impact sourcing and inclusive hiring practices. The video helps to frame our event today. This is the second launch webinar, the first of which was held on the 3rd of February. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all BPESA members, partners, and all stakeholders from across South Africa and beyond attending this BPESA Skills Forum. I'm pleased to see representatives from global business services operators, training businesses, community-based organizations, and our government partners who support our demand-led skilling initiatives in each one of our regions. BPESA is exceptionally proud and excited to be partnering with SA Youth to launch a powerful impact sourcing solution for the GBS sector. For those I have not yet met, my name is Keith Rosmarin, and I'm the BPESA Skills Portfolio Lead, And previously I supported Harambee for over 8 years, and the theme for today's event is very close to my heart. Before taking you through the agenda and introducing the team, I'd like to share a story of a candidate I met at Harambee 3 years ago. It's always about the candidate and placing them front and foremost. Vuyo had been unemployed for 2 years since completing his matric successfully and had been struggling to find work after many attempts at submitting his CV. He was matched to a demand opportunity I had facilitated for a large international captive based in Cape Town, based on his geographic location, neutral accent, and conversational English potential. Vuyo came from the Eastern Cape, but was living in a shack in the Cape Flats. Vuyo arrived every day to attend a 6-week Close the Gap work readiness intervention, building his confidence, which had taken a knock over the 2-year period while he was unemployed, in addition to developing a foundational level of skills for the role in the contact center. We spent time talking about what a job would mean to him and, of course, his family. And on the day of the interviews, Vuyo unfortunately did not pitch. And when we reached out to him, he said that he'd been thrown out of his room and did not have any money to get to the interview. After exploring a few options, I decided to drive and fetch him. Vuyo attended the interviews, blew the client away with his grit, determination, and evident potential, and successfully pathwayed into the role, becoming one of the highest performing agents. He's now a team leader. This is only one story, of course, that has been replicated many thousands of times in the GBS sector in South Africa, and that has set the global benchmark for impact sourcing and inclusive hiring around the world. Today, we'll have an opportunity to learn more about SA Youth and how the platform can assist GBS businesses with an additional channel to source their talent inclusively. The storytelling team consists of a combination of colleagues and partners from BPESA and Harambee. First of all, Tracy Freeman is a BPESA lead responsible for marketing and growth portfolio and engages extensively with international buyers, investors, and analysts to attract investment and drive growth. Lesedi Masha is from Harambee also and is currently the Harambee Network and Pathway Manager. Tracy Swart is the Regional Executive for Harambee with extensive GBS experience and manages the partnership interface between BPESA and Harambee. Guy Shand is a private sector lead at Harambee and also responsible for the product portfolio. Andy needs no further introduction, and of course he is the CEO of BPESA. For today's session, Tracy and Andy will take you through the global and domestic drivers for impact sourcing and inclusive hiring. And Lesedi will tell the story of SA Youth and the National Pathway Management Network. Tracy and Guy will discuss the value proposition for GBS businesses and how to get started. We'll close out with a call to action and next steps, but of course, this is also about engaging with our community and the GBS sector. So we'd appreciate if you would use the chat function and Q&A to engage with the team, and we'll also have some time at the end to have further engagement. With that introduction, I'd like to hand over to Tracy Freeman. Thanks, Tracy.
Fantastic, Keith. Thank you so much. And thrilled that we had so much interest in impact sourcing, inclusive hiring, that we've needed to run a second session. So welcome to all our participants that are joining us, and thrilled to see that we have not only a local audience, but a global audience that's joined us today. I wanted to just spend a few moments in giving a bit of background on where impact sourcing actually comes from, where its birth point was. Really just because I suppose it's a proudly South African story, and something that from a South African perspective and a BPESA perspective, we've really just continued to hone, engage with our local and international community to see how can we improve what was born in South Africa. So if we move on to the next slide, it shows a bit of a timeline of where everything started. The Rockefeller Foundation, which is a philanthropic organization head officed in New York in the US, engaged with their Africa office based in Kenya from the perspective that the unemployment rate of youth in the African continent, or on the African continent, is one of the highest in the world. And they're really engaged saying, how is it that we can engage with this African youth community and support in making a meaningful difference in their lives and creating employment opportunities. And that was the original initiative known as PRIDE, which is poverty reduction through information and digital employment. And the reason that the digital came in is that the foundation said literacy of the future is digital. So how do we engage our youth and get them to be more digitally inclined and trained? In 2013, the launch of Digital Jobs Africa was done at the World Economic Forum in Cape Town. And that's where the Rockefeller Foundation actually gave birth to what eventually became known as the Global Impact Sourcing Coalition. In 2014, the Impact Sourcing Conference was hosted in South Africa, where a number of local and global players came together and started looking at this concept of impact sourcing and how it could be scaled using South Africa as a test ground. It was at this point that BPESA had actually engaged with a number of other local South African and a few African firms to really start testing out what does it look like and what does it mean to engage with, at that point referenced as marginalized communities. And across Africa, we obviously know that this is our youth community. And that ebbed and flowed and tested and worked with many partners from the Maharishi Institute, Career Box, Harambee, and a number of large BPO players that put up their hands to say, we need skills, we want to get involved, how do we scale this, how do we play this out? And that was eventually launched in 2016 with Business for Social Responsibilities as a secretariat, which was then running the Global Impact Sourcing Coalition, which is what you all know today. In 2018, through our partnership with a number of organizations, specifically the IAOP based in the North American markets in the US, they saw the opportunity to support their own local member community, but a global community as well, and really saw this as an opportunity to make a meaningful social difference globally. And the Global Impact Sourcing Awards were launched by the IAOP. And that has continued now up until 2021. We've already seen a number of South African firms that have been recipients of this award. And we're thrilled that at the end of last year, BPESA took on the mandate to support the Africa Impact Sourcing Chapter. And we do that alongside a number of our partners. The one is intelligent sourcing, which many of you would have been exposed to, and we will be sharing the reference a little bit later to our impact sourcing supplement that we launched at our 2019 Global Business Services event. Intelligent sourcing runs the UK Ireland chapter, and IOP runs the North American chapter. So you're definitely going to be seeing more happening from an Africa chapter perspective, and we encourage all of our local BPESA community and stakeholders of the GBS sector to get involved with the Africa chapter. I'm just going to flick through a few slides here quickly, just so that you can see some of the brands that originally got involved when we first started playing with the concept of impact sourcing. And many of these brands will be familiar to you. And a lot of them, as you can see, are South African brands, where we really deep dived with these organizations to say, how do we make the concept of impact sourcing work? The Steer Co is a global community that was set up to really try and guide the Global Impact Sourcing Coalition, make sure that it stayed true to its initial intention, which is really to make a meaningful difference to marginalized communities. And there was also a standard that was created out of this. So organizations that are practicing impact sourcing, and I will reference what that is in a moment, actually ensure that they are practicing it correctly through verifications, etc. So you can see there's a number of organizations that have already adopted the standards. There's a number of organizations that put up their hands to say, we want to be part of this global community, and actually signed up to be members, whether they be buyers or providers or associate members helping to support the concept of impact sourcing. BPESA signed on initially as an associate member, as you can see there, along with a number of our current partners. So if I go to a little bit more detail now on what impact sourcing actually is, on the next slide, you'll see that there's a specific business case. So we get asked often, so what exactly is impact sourcing? Is this a CSI approach? Is it something that we can tick boxes with? And the answer is yes and no. The impact sourcing concept certainly fits into a CSI approach for a number of organizations, but it goes beyond that because there is actually a business case that supports impact sourcing. So why the Global Impact Sourcing Coalition, BSR, and the Rockefeller Foundation enjoyed the testing that they did of impact sourcing in South Africa is they came across the South African BE scorecard, which for many of you on the call, you'll know looks at what I reference as a domino effect. So how it is that you procure and purchase services from suppliers will impact your scorecard. And the same is true for the Impact Sourcing Coalition or your Impact Sourcing Scorecard. So working with buyers look to work with suppliers who practice impact sourcing. And impact sourcing in a definition nutshell is the intentional hiring of marginalized youth, bringing them into the business, ensuring that there is a career trajectory for that individual. And Keith already referenced just one of thousands of case studies of Vuyo, how he actually managed to get into an environment he wouldn't have otherwise, and how his life has been changed, his family's life has been changed, and the community has been transformed. So it's really about how do these pathways into the world of work, into business, get opened up for youth who otherwise would not have had an opportunity to get into into a workplace. And the business case shows, and I think if we go to the next screen, we have a couple of stats. The business case shows that from a buyer's perspective, when they started testing out, taking on what we reference as a standard recruit versus an impact hire, within 3 to 6 months, the impact worker was actually on a par, if not exceeding, the quality and output that the standard recruit would have. The loyalty that the impact worker, the individual who's come into the organization, is giving through to the organization is phenomenal. Attrition rates, I think on the next slide, we have some more information. Attrition rates are down. The output is up. The attitudes to support the brand that gave them a chance and an opportunity to actually break into the world of work has shown huge value. So you're not seeing this churn of staff, which means that there's massive cost savings in not having to re-recruit, rehire and retrain an individual for the positions that are available. And then we've already referenced the type of impact that this is having into the communities. I've referenced the Africa Impact Sourcing chapter, and we will be working along with a number of other African countries and organizations like BPESA to really make sure that we are supporting the growth, the scaling, the implementation of tried and tested mechanisms of engaging with marginalized youth communities to make sure that we're setting the buyers, the BPOs, and the individuals up for success. This is a huge need in Africa to make sure that we're opening up employment opportunities for our youth. And as BPESA and as the global business services sector, the team that I work with, we literally get up in the morning to say, how can we make a meaningful difference in our country and across the continent today by getting more individuals employed into our sector? Andy, I think with that as a historic backdrop, I would like to pass over to you to pick up on how we're really embedding this into the global business services sector in South Africa. Thank you.
Tracy, hi, and thank you very much. You've set a really great background for what I'd like to cover. So just picking up on what Tracy said, and a big welcome to everybody on the call and a good afternoon to you. Delighted you could join this second session on the SA Youth Initiative, and thanks to all our colleagues for putting this together in such a great way. As we know, the job creating capability of this sector has really had an impact on the economy. It's raised the profile of the GBS sector amongst our government and business stakeholders to the extent that it's referred to as a priority sector. This is a reference in the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, within the PPGI, within BPESA, and various other business platforms as well. And it was specifically called out by the President in his last address to the nation on the economy and economic recovery plans, and has received recent commitment from the DTRC to go ahead with a sector master plan, and we hear much about the importance and the role of the sector master plans in economic reconstruction and recovery. Now, moving on to the next slide, this growth, which was at average, believe it or not, 24% compounded growth between 2014 and 2018, and then picked up even to 34% in 2019. This growth needs to be inclusive. The success of the South African proposition, evidenced by the numbers that we see, bears testament to the fantastic quality of the performance of the young people. And they make up 91% of the new hires, who are mostly deployed into the voice-based roles. But these young people come from the poorer and marginalized communities by and large, where millions of others just like them with the same capability and potential live and are unemployed. The growth potential of the sector represents such a unique opportunity to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs for these talented young people. Accessing many more of them and unlocking their potential will not only give them a great job opportunity, but will also enable companies who employ them to scale their operations significantly behind growing global demand for the GBS services. And this would contribute increasingly to export revenue growth to the economy. It would increase the tax collection base, and it would contribute to our national economic recovery and reconstruction process. Moving to the next slide, I'd like to just talk a little bit about BPESA's role as champion of impact sourcing that Tracy's already highlighted to some extent. BPESA, together with our partners in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition and Harambee, we're committed to champion and support the drive to hire inclusively in the sector, because we understand and have experienced the strategic significance of it and the value of doing that. The DTRC have demonstrated that support by including inclusive hiring in the incentive, the GBS DTRC incentive policy guidelines for all categories of jobs, but with a particular emphasis on the non-complex jobs that make up most of the service types that are delivered from South Africa. So what BPESA will do is firstly continue the great work of the Global Impact Sourcing Coalition, which Tracy talked about earlier, taking on the role of champion for the Africa region that Tracy is going to lead, but focusing on South Africa, where we will push to have impact sourcing and inclusive hiring included in as many of the sourcing policies and procedures in the domestic and the international market as possible. The second thing that we will do is we will advocate the National Pathway Manager Network, or SA-Youth.mobi, to be adopted amongst all industries that, and not just the GBS sector, but including our sector, where at least we have a greater level of influence and we know the kind of support that we have. And thirdly, we'll be taking on the role as BPESA of an intermediary for outcomes funded skills programs, and that will give us the opportunity to require companies participating to use the platform to access these young people and place them into training programs and then into good quality work. And this will help them meet their own inclusive hiring targets where they're battling to do so themselves. Then let's talk about what your role could be in adopting inclusive hiring. And that's perhaps the most important thing about today's call. So as an operator in the GBS sector, and potentially as a beneficiary of the DTR GBS incentives, there's a lot more that can be done to drive the adoption of impact sourcing and inclusive growth. So just to touch on a few things, you can broaden the scale of inclusive hiring in your own business as you grow to exceed the 20% minimum target that we've got, which is really a soft target when you think of the potential that young people have and have demonstrated. And this would be probably the greatest contribution, is put it into practice, how those young people experience the benefits yourself. Secondly, you can help us and our partners in the DTRC and Harambee to build better insights into the adoption of inclusive hiring. And you can do that by sharing information about your strategy, about what's working, what's not working, the kind of targets that you're setting for yourself and how you're achieving them or battling to achieve them, so that we can understand that and build the insights and identify where and how to help. The third thing you can do is to share case studies with each other, in which young people who have been hired inclusively have excelled. And there are just so many of them that we don't get to hear about. And fourthly, you can assist us in advocating this practice within your own business network, talking to your clients, to your suppliers, as an integral component of the sector's overall growth strategy. Lastly then, when you do this, we're here to support you and enable you. And we can do that in the following ways. We can refer you to companies who do have the capabilities and the footprint to support you in sourcing the right candidates from these marginalized and excluded communities, and in providing effective engagement and closing the gap training. That's where you can't do that yourself. Secondly, where you're wanting to build those capabilities in-house, we can support you by providing you with practice guidelines and putting you in touch with organizations that can give you some coaching and support and guidance. Third, we'll certainly be including you in funded skills programs wherever we can, where BPESA is tasked to play the role of intermediary and for which excluded youth are the target. The fourth is that we can help you to build your candidate pipeline through participating in the SA Youth Mobi platform, where you can post those job opportunities that you have and candidates can be matched to those. Fifth, we can advocate the growing number of domestic and international clients to include socially conscious and inclusive hiring as part of their outsourcing and offshoring strategy, and use all our international platforms and our networks to do so. And last, but with great effect, we can promote the commercial business case and the benefits case of hiring inclusively. In closing then, just want to reiterate that we have such a unique responsibility and opportunity in South Africa to use the growth potential of this sector to make a very positive impact on youth employment, or unemployment, should I say, in the country. And the best thing about what we can do is that the very young people who would benefit from your adoption of inclusive hiring are the people who will provide you with the competitive advantage needed to grow existing business and win new business, certainly in the global markets, but also at home. And that's based on the case study evidence to date. So inclusive hiring in the South African context makes commercial sense, and it makes a real impact on society. So please continue to support our collective drive to hire inclusively, or join us now in doing so if you have not yet started. Thanks very much. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Keith.
Thanks so much, Andy. What I'd like to do is hand over to Lesedi, who will talk to us a little more about what is SA Youth, its journey, and of course, the connection to the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. Thanks, Lesedi.
Thank you, Keith. It's always nice to start the National Pathway Management Network story when we just stop a little bit and put ourselves into the shoes of a young person in South Africa. And the story we've chosen today is Herschel's story, but Herschel's story is very similar to many young people in South Africa, many young unemployed people in South Africa, and specifically also just some interesting facts or nuances for young unemployed women in South Africa. Herschel is a 22-year-old young woman from Eldorado Park. She lives in a household of 7 people whose only stable income is that of their grandmother's grant. Herschel is seen as somewhat of the mom in the house because she takes care of her siblings and the other younger children in the house. Herschel is unemployed. She looks for work every week or whenever she can afford to. Unemployed youth in South Africa spend about 1,000 Rand a month to look for work. Half of that amount is only on transport, and a third is around data. So Herschel is generally unsuccessful in her aim to look for work, one, because of the costs associated, but also she has to negotiate, can she leave the house and when can she leave her home? She has no work experience, no qualifications beyond matric, and no networks who can recommend her into a job suited for her. She's basically invisible to the economy. She's excluded from the economy, and the economy is invisible to her. But Herschel's story is the same as many millions of young South Africans in unemployed South Africans. At the start of 2020, we only had 5.8 million youth employed, a number that hasn't increased since our last crisis in 2019. In lockdown, another million lost their jobs, and 2/3 were young women. Young people are the first out the door in a crisis and at the back of a queue in recovery. We need to change the system. We need to move from millions of young women and men with no sight of opportunities to where we are now, a big improvement in that we've enabled a lot of young people to be able to see and access opportunities. But what the National Pathway Manager does, it removes the systematic barriers created around how young people access these opportunities. One of these things, which we'll highlight in the slides, is something as simple as zero rating the website, where young people don't have to spend data on looking for jobs. What I wanted to do is also take us one step back. Where did the National Pathway Management Network come from? And it is pillar one in what we call the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, which the president has announced before and will be giving updates regularly to the nation. But what this intervention is it's a comprehensive youth employment intervention underpinned by 5 pillars, of which the National Pathway Management Network is the overarching pillar. Pillar 1 is a single platform where young people can access opportunities freely and inclusively and be linked to various services near them. Pillar 2 is about creating new jobs in fast-growing sectors and preparing youth through short and flexible skilling interventions. Pillar 3 is about enabling self-employed youth in townships and rural areas to scale up their micro enterprises. This does include gig work. Pillar 4 is about including demand-side programs, and YES is a lead partner in this area around workplace-based work experiences. And Pillar 5 is all about presidential youth service, about creating opportunities for youth to earn an income while contributing to nation building in the service of their communities. So really what the intervention is about creating more jobs and opportunities for youth, whether in the formal, informal, or social economy, driving system change that addresses barriers and supports inclusive hiring and reduced unemployment, as well as thirdly, link youth to opportunities and to support them in an inclusive and free way. If we were to just then say, in a nutshell, the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention is a strategic national vision and plan. The National Pathway Management Network is all about how partners can come together to provide various opportunities and services for youth. It's about us circling around the young person and creating the network of networks for young people, a single entry point for them to come in and get access to various opportunities. And therefore, what SA Youth is, it's the platform of the National Pathway Management Network. So this is where young people then come into the intervention or the National Pathway Management Network to find access to various opportunities for free. The platform is built in a way where we've co-created across various partners who are working with the presidency PMO to build the various channels and the entry points. This, as we said, is the network of networks, and it's in a way where it provides ongoing recommendations, learning, and content to support the young person. It's about increasing their engagement and keeping them connected. Young people are also quite demotivated. Some of them have lost hope. And even with the pandemic, some of them are really, really not in a good space. There's even been research about increased levels of anxiety and depression. So really what the SA Youth platform tries to do is keep them engaged and connected as well. This platform like I said, has been co-created across various partners, including the Department of Employment and Labor, Higher Education and Training, Science and Innovation, even the Jobs Fund, NYDA, Gauteng Provincial Government, Harambee, and quite a few university partners. This is the single entry point for youth, and it is a free Mobi site that has been zero rated across a couple of telcos. This is the channel that is used mainly by young people, and there are other online and offline platforms or channels that they can use to access various products and features on SA Youth. This is a nice way to then depict what are the various channels and what are the uses for all the channels. So we mentioned that it's a Mobi site, first of all, which is regularly updated with new features. And as we learn more from young people and as we learn also from partners, we're constantly adding more features. And I'll take you through some of what already you could find on the Mobi site. It's also interesting at this point to know that the Mobi site was created versus an app, because apps tend to be data and storage heavy. And when we considered what kind of phones or access to technology do young people or devices do young people have, when we thought of a Mobi site, it's probably the best platform that one works with different types of devices, but also in a more efficient way to cater for all the various needs of young people. We also have an inbound and an outbound line, both of them created to create different levels of support for young people. The inbound line can be used even for various campaigns. For example, last year, when the Department of Basic Education was looking to provide 300,000 opportunities for young people, either as general assistants or teachers' assistants, the inbound line was used as a way for young people who were either struggling with registrations or needed an offline version to apply for that opportunity. The outbound line is used to really encourage young people and to build their profiles. So they'll get a call from an advisor, and through the call, they'll be able to, one, motivate the young person, encourage them to even do volunteering, even though they're struggling to find a job, or community work, and how that helps on their CV and from their experience perspective, and to build their profile. Remind them about important things on their profile that if they add to their SA Youth profile will help them be more visible to various opportunity holders. There are various social media platforms and channels that young people can access, so SA Youth. But one of the ones I wanted to point out was the WhatsApp chatbot that's already been created for young people who are looking to start a hustle or to grow their hustle. Even things like language are really important in SA Youth. Young people call small pieces of work where they're sort of earning an income or while they're waiting for a formal job, a hustle. So through the chatbot, they're able to simulate various activities and challenges that help them either start a business or grow their current hustle. We also have another channel, which is the partner portal, and using various sites to get networks onto SA Youth, as well as an entry point for businesses. Like I said, SA Youth is constantly iterating and adding new features. So Partner Portal would be the entry point for businesses, and my colleagues will share where we are in terms of that feature and where we are in terms of automating some of the processes there. So SA Youth, when you look across the channels, we've considered various ways not only to integrate with the young person, support them in any way that they need, but also how do we help opportunity holders use SA Youth to share their opportunities. If you were to visit SA Youth today, what would it look like? Like I mentioned, we recently got a lot of the major telcos to zero rate SA Youth. So the link has changed from sayouthdatafree.co, which you can visit now, but to sayouth.mobi. And we will be sharing that as these updates and innovations are happening. But if you were to visit now, there are 3 things that a young person will be asked to do or will be able to do on SA Youth. The first is join. It's a simple and quick registration process that is optimized for various phone types. Up front, we even mentioned that it should take about 4 minutes. You'll only need 2 things, an SA ID or a zip code, or at least where you live, and then you're set up to start. Other questions in your registration will ask for practical reasons. So for example, contact number, we ask for your primary contact number. We ask also for your WhatsApp number. And that's through learning over the years that sometimes young people are sharing a phone in the home, or their phone number you can contact them to call is not the same as that for WhatsApp. So it's a very quick process to register. Once you're registered, everything from that point is personalized. So from the welcome message to even opportunities you're interested in. The first thing a young person would do once they registered and they are now part of SA Youth is complete 4 quick steps that tell us more about them so that the opportunities that they want to see are suited to them. This literally takes about 5 minutes, and it's enabled in a way where you're just selecting what works for you. The first part of that is your current situation, describing, are you looking for a job right now? Are you looking to start a hustle? Or are you just looking for inspiration? Then we move on to understanding your community and volunteer involvement. So through 6 simple questions, how involved are you in your community? What are you doing? Secondly, how involved are you in volunteering and what are you doing? The third piece is describing a regular day. And there is another just ticking various options on my regular day involves childcare. My regular day involves me looking for a job. My regular day involves me being very busy in my community, or I'm involved in some way in sports. And that just gives us an indication of how available is that young person, but also especially because we understand the different barriers that women and men face who are looking for work or unemployed. We also want to understand what kind of responsibilities do you have. So as we're recommending various learning content or various opportunities, we are cognizant of your current environment. The fourth piece is sentiments. And here we really need to understand or separate the young people who are really just looking for a formal sector job from those who could be interested in taking up community sort of opportunities, stipended opportunities, or even part-time work, some work experience as they wait for more permanent or full-time opportunity. The other portion where a young person can then come back at any time to update their profile includes further detail. So like post qualifications you can include. You can even change your address if you feel like I can actually move from an area where I notice there aren't enough opportunities to somewhere maybe living with family in an area where there are more opportunities for me. You can at any time also come and update your experience. So as young people are completing various work experiences or as they're starting small hustles and they want to come back and say, through my braiding business, I've learned customer care, I've learned how to be more financially literate, I've learned how to grow my business, they can come back at any time to update their profile. Lastly, what a young person would then see after just the 4 minutes of registering plus 5 minutes of building their profile is opportunities. Now in this space, this includes aggregated opportunities, whether from government, private sector, entrepreneurship, or community-based programs like youth service. And this is just an example of what a young person sees on their device. So they'll always see a summary view, and as they click read more, they're able to see the detail behind that opportunity. Further to just where it is, they can see descriptions about the criteria required. They can see the salary and the benefits if they're included. They can even click and either be redirected to a site where then they apply for those applications, or stay on a 0-rated platform like SA Youth and complete their applications on the platform. What is really nice about this is young people can apply and engage with different types of opportunities that suit them, different types of opportunities that not only cater for, I have post-matric qualification, but I don't have any qualifications, or I don't have any experience. And as they engage more and more with SA Youth and come back and update their profile, their recommendations start changing based on how much they bring back to the platform and let the platform know that they're interested in or they are doing. I'd like to now pass over to my colleague Tracy, who will take us through what SA Youth offers GBS.
Thanks, Lesedi, and the rest of the team that's presented so far. And it's really great to be with you all today. And I thank you for your time for joining the session. And I'm fairly certain it's going to be valuable for you. So we've heard from Tracy, Andy, and Lesedi on the what and the why regarding, SA youth, and particularly regarding impact sourcing in South Africa. Guy and I are now going to take you to the how. From a GBS operator perspective, SA Youth really offers an alternative channel to your sourcing journey, and allows you to showcase any opportunities within your organization that are focused on youth with limited experience, and how to support their journey into your organization. The matching that is undertaken on the platform ensures that there is a geo match to your area of where your office is and where the opportunity is located, which allows for a young person to really start looking at where sustainable future career opportunities are for them, and not just applying for a job really just out of desperation, but knowing that the transport costs are going to be so far out of their reach that staying employed is not going to be a sustainable option for them. SA Youth also allows us to validate the inclusive youth candidates. I mean, this is extremely important, both just for the social and economic reasons, but for any of the operators that are on the call, either currently or in the future, want to access the government incentive programs through the DTRC, you'll know that a requirement of that program is that you meet a 20% inclusive hiring number. And for people who don't have access to those inclusive hires or validating them, this is definitely an alternative channel that they would be able to use. As we've heard from Tracy, there's a sound business case for doing impact sourcing. And certainly from a South Africa point of view, there's definitely a social and economic one as well. And that's, it's an imperative for South Africa that we need to undertake this to develop the skill set and the skill pool, particularly in a high growth sector like GBS. And the growth that we've seen over the last couple of years, we know that we need to devise plans and programs that pathway these young people into entry-level roles and opportunities. And as I've mentioned already, the requirement of 20% for the DTRC incentive makes this an imperative as well. From a cost point of view, as we've mentioned earlier, for the candidates, obviously there's absolutely no charge for them to participate on the platform. And in addition to which, we've also have data free, it's totally data free. So there's no cost to join, there's no cost to participate, there would be no cost to upload, change your information, etc., etc. And the good news is that currently for any of the employers participating on the platform, there's no cost as well. So this, could result in significantly reduced sourcing costs where, you're either having to go out into specific communities to look for candidates that match the criteria that you're looking for. It really is as simple as getting in touch with us and allowing us to advertise your opportunity on the platform and match candidates that meet your actual specific requirements. In addition to that, as I said, we have both got the quintile schools loaded on the system. We also do hope calls, which allow us to ask them income questions so we can validate those inclusive hires for you in advance of any lists of potential staff being matched to you. Lesedi did mention that the platform is iterating, and we really are trying to build access for both the employer and the employee that makes sense in terms of the technology that's available, and the platform is iterating over time. The intention of the workshop today was really just to provide a high-level overview of SAU, allow you to understand what the importance is, if you weren't already, of impact sourcing in our current environment. But we are going to be rolling out more specific, bespoke webinars to each of the regions and allow a lot more interaction on those webinars, and where we will deal with the specifics around the iterations that are going to be coming to the platform. But in the meantime, I'd like to hand over to Guy, who is responsible within the Harambee network to support any of the GBS operators who are looking to use the platform. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you, Tracy, and afternoon all. I think Lesedi gave us some great insight in terms of how SA Youth is looking to better understand the challenges that work seekers experience, to further remove the barriers in terms of them gaining access to employment or understanding where opportunities exist. And also gave us some insight in terms of the types of data and information that we actually collect from work seekers. So in terms of GBS specific types of roles, what I'm sure you'd like to understand is what kinds of information and data do we use to actually match a young work seeker to a potential opportunity? These are segmented into 6 different buckets. The first being a geographic match. Ultimately, where a work seeker is able to live within one taxi ride of an opportunity. We know from an affordability point of view, this makes work more accessible, which makes it more likely they'll be able to afford to stay in that role, which thereby increases retention. From a functional point of view, a couple of my colleagues have spoken about spoken English. So for example, matching work seekers to opportunities where spoken English is being used, for example, in GBS or a customer-facing role is really important. For a lot of our youth who have not had formal work experience, we use the data that we collect from them and look at attributes such as energy, curiosity, and self-regulation to understand their basic behaviors and socialization for work. And then specific to any potential opportunities, there might be elements such as socio-demographic elements, so age, gender, ethnicity, or education level as an example. We also look at occupation-specific requirements. So these could be more specific to a potential opportunity. So something such as a post-matric or a driver's license would be an example of that. And then we find interest in opportunity is a key definer as well in terms of a candidate or a work seeker's success in an opportunity. Where someone is actually coming across an opportunity, they are choosing to be involved in that opportunity. That interest then also directly correlates to their ability to be successful in that role. So we've spoken a bit about SA Youth, and again, some of my colleagues have spoken about some of the current features that are available, as well as future capabilities that we're looking to build out or actually currently in progress. So from a current perspective, this geocoding and understanding address is key in terms of matching and understanding transport routes. We've spoken about the matching engine. We currently have 1.5 million engaged work seekers on our platform. We work with over 500 partners. So the more data we get onto the network, the better we're able to optimize and learn optimize and update the recommendation on the matching engine. Lesedi mentioned a toll-free inbound line for our work seekers. This is anything relating to anyone looking for some information relating to a potential opportunity, or where someone might just be looking to update their profile. We have a learner management system, which looks to support our work seekers with elements such as a job seekers guide, which talks to interview tips and other things to help work seekers be successful in opportunities, driver's license preparation or second chance matric. We also have seen, obviously, with the impact of COVID, that there's been a plethora of fake news that's existed within the network. So creating content on our Mobi to be able to provide further support for our work seekers with COVID-19 related content. And then we have a service center team currently, which is able to assist you directly with any employment opportunities that you might have. From a future capability point of view, we are currently working on a WhatsApp integration for voice note capturing and review by employers. So for employers such as yourselves in the sector specifically, the ability for a work seeker to record a voice note based on a predetermined script that you have set up, and for you then to actually listen to that, and based on this information, then be able to either progress a work seeker or to say, no, they don't actually match the criteria that are required. And then again, further automation and process simplification of all our client or employee engaged processes. So SA Youth really is an additional sourcing channel, which again, as my colleagues have mentioned, has no service fee. There is no payment in terms of a monetary cost for this service. What we do require though is confirmation of placement. And this is important for a number of reasons. One, our ability to provide the service for free is as a result of the range of funders that support this platform. And to prove the success of the platform, we need to confirm where placements are taking place. Why this is also important is obviously where we are seeing placements, there's additional data for us to be able to learn, to better understand how our youth actually pathway through the ecosystem. In terms of if you are interested in understanding how we could potentially support you for any entry-level opportunities in this space, there really is no reason not to reach out to us, because there is no cost and there's only upside in terms of better understanding what candidates actually might be interested and available in your network. You can email us at services@harambee.co.za. One of our service center agents will reach out to you to complete a diagnostic to better understand what the opportunity is. There is a simple 2-page SLA, which just outlines the process and reconfirms that there's no fee other than the confirmation of placement. That is a one-off document. So once you've signed that for your group or organization, you do not need to sign it again. We will then match young work seekers to your opportunity, and they will communicate to you an interview list of those work seekers who have confirmed not only their availability, but their interest in that opportunity. You are then free, obviously, to interview and then ultimately to feed back to us on who has been successfully placed. So ultimately, no cost, quick service, huge access to a network of 1.5 million engaged work seekers. I suppose my question to you is, why would you not email us?
Thanks, Guy. I think you framed that last part really well, and certainly better than Anando's ad. But Guy, thank you very much indeed. I think what I'd like you to do, just in the remaining minutes, everybody, I think is just frame, I think, the pathway that we've taken over the last hour. And I think just starting off, we've heard from Tracy and how she shared information on the return on investment from impact sourcing and the creation of the Africa Impact Sourcing Chapter. We've heard from Andy, who helped to position the importance of inclusive growth and the need to build our talent pipeline to support the steep growth trajectory of the GBS sector. Lesedi told a great story on how provided links to the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and how SA Youth helps to enable work seekers to find earning and learning pathways more easily. Tracy also alluded to the return on investment and how the platform will be automating in the future. And Guy provided an easy way in which the GBS sector can engage with SA Youth. In the last few minutes, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about where this process continues. So this is not just a once-off support. The BPESA is very much committed to supporting our sector as well as SA Youth, and we'll be running regional roadshows in March, and that'll be a deeper dive into some of the operational elements of how SA Youth works, how to access it, and I think especially important for GBS operator, human resource practitioners, recruitment managers, etc. And we'll communicate that information through to you. We've loaded on information onto the chat around the impact sourcing supplement, and we'll also be doing a refresh of that during this year, and looking forward to input and content from all of you as well. We would value, I think, your feedback as well. And of course, we're looking forward to you adopting SA Youth as part of that platform. And we are here to help you with that process. There have been a few questions that have been discussed and identified or discussed in the chat. Lorenzo spoke about the success ratio of the sourcing systems in the private sector as opposed to that of the public sector. And I think we don't necessarily have that information right now, Lorenzo, but I think certainly BPESA supports an evidence-based and data-led approach. And this is information that we will definitely be gathering. And certainly information that is available, we'll start to share that more widely. Mark also spoke about joining the chapter in the GISC. And Tracy and I will be communicating information on how we connect and how you can connect and support and be engaged with the Africa chapter for impact sourcing. I'm just going to have a quick look and see in the last minute if there are any other aspects that we can which we can tap into. But I think feel free to reach out to me. My email address has been shared, and happy to field those questions and queries and suggestions that you might have. but I really appreciate the investment of time that you've taken to join us for this afternoon. We're looking forward to traveling this journey and showcasing some success stories of the GBS sector using SA Youth. With that, thanks very much indeed, everybody, and goodbye.